Clint.
LinkedIn
So
should
definitely
be up.
And Facebook.
I always listen for that. When you're not on, I don't hear it. And Jeff will go, "Yep, you're up, you're up."
Oh, that's interesting. I click on the little pop-up, and it goes right to watch.
Nice.
That's new.
So I'm seeing there's a little live. It says Telestreams live. It just popped up. That's I think recent as well.
Yeah.
Making it easier. That's good.
Yep.
That was on LinkedIn, so we were definitely rolling LinkedIn.
I had an issue last night with YouTube. For some reason, it wasn't going live on my YouTube channel, and then I tested after I was done with the show. It worked fine, so I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Alfredo. Our friend Alfredo. Alfredo, how are you?
Alfredo's.
And Joe. Joe.
Is this on Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Alfredo.
Okay. Hey, if you guys can
guy,
share it out.
Jeff Fitzgerald just joined. I don't know who that guy is, but anyways.
Yeah. Nobody does. Nobody in my family does. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, maybe we'll get a lot more viewers because a lot of people have today off, or they're traveling. So one of two things can happen: we get less viewers because everybody's traveling, or we'll get more viewers because everybody's off. And I just want to make everybody aware that's coming in here. I don't know if you've been watching the weather, but we are under a strong wind advisory for 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts. It started as of 10 a.m. this morning. Now, I haven't heard anything really ripping outside, but if the power goes off, count on the show not coming back on. That means we're down and out.
Not coming back on.
Yeah, it's
Fair
not
warning.
coming back. So I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're sitting there and all of a sudden all the feeds just die, yeah, that probably means that I'm out of power. And yeah, we don't lose power too often here, but again, the gusts is just, it's every now and again. It's not a constant wind, so I'm not too worried about it. But I've also seen the power go out on a bright sunny day, so I'm just making everybody aware. Same with you guys on the panel here. Like if I drop, because I have battery backups enough that I can shut everything down. But if the internet and all that just done, we're done. So we
bunch of people joined on Facebook. Thomas from Germany, hello. Ahmed, hello. Alfredo, Nick, Dudley, hello. How are you? Let's see, Joe. We got Luke. Hey, Luke, how are you? Great to have you with us.
Joe said he had that in Chicago. It was all ripping through, and I think Brad was saying yesterday that it was ripping through as well.
Yeah. Keep it there. Don't send it east where I am.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, I was like, Jeff was there a second, and then he had this like grin that he was just not moving, and I'm going, oh, he dropped.
He always says that. I have, I don't know, 16,000 browsers open, and the one I clicked was the one with the feed back to the studio.
That's all right. But you know what? At least I have to ask John, because I'd like, when I do my arcade setup over there, I don't turn everything else on. I just turn on the neural net system, and I run Wirecast on a MacBook Pro over there. I would love, and I don't know if there's a way to send a studio return feed with NDI. Do you guys know if you can do that with the neural net? Like right now I'm sending you SDI program back. I'd like to send NDI program back.
Instead of like a webcam.
Well, yeah, because if I'm running Wirecast over there, there's no hard line. That's
Oh, are you talking about not in the behind the scene, not in the control room feed, but studio feed?
The studio feed. Like you guys are getting two feeds from me, right? You're getting the control room, right? The awful webcam, and then you're getting also the return feed, right?
Right.
So those two I would like to be able to get the one feed be NDI.
Right.
So I need to talk with John.
It's possible, but I think John, I mean, obviously, everybody knows John Mahoney is the standout guru professor when it comes to all things like NDI and things like that. But I would imagine that's definitely possible. Now, the
Okay.
question is, if you're running it between Mac and PC and things like that, there's fewer NDI
Yeah.
apps, for Mac. That's the thing I see. But
I'll ask him. I'll ask him next time I talk to him. I'll wait till after the holidays and ask him. But I was just curious if you guys knew off the top of your head, because that would be ideal, because Wirecast can do NDI out. And since it's over there on my MacBook, I could NDI out to this system. It would automatically see it. I could choose that as the return video going back to, like in which case last night it was Glenn. He could receive that signal as well as whatever the control room signal is. So I don't know. It was just a use case that popped up. So
yeah, no, I think it's a smart move. I was going to ask him what USB port I need for the turkey, so we'll have to talk to him equally to find our better answers.
I actually half thought you would show up wearing like a turkey hat today. I really did. Like, I thought Jeff's going to come on here. He's going to blow us all away. And he's going to be sitting here with like these drumsticks coming off the top of his head.
I actually really thought about it hard. And then I thought about,
you probably did. I'm not surprised.
I thought about cutting out a turkey dinner with, the P&G, putting it in front of us like we're all eating, that
There
kind
you
of
go.
thing. And, but, it's always, what's the input of that? I'd take 6 hours building a Photoshop that nobody would care about anyway. So
yeah. So Michael in the chat room says, well, vMix can do that. No, we're not talking about vMix. We're talking about the video conferencing software that we're using, which is on a separate box.
Yep.
It's called NeuralNet. And Wirecast can do that as well. Like, you can send an NDI signal back to somebody on Rendezvous, but we're using a separate conferencing system to bring in the high quality video because we use an audio mixer, so we have to have a way to route it into the mixer and control the inputs independently. So yeah, you're right. The software solutions that are out there have that ability, both Wirecast and some of the other ones.
I think probably pretty much any software solution can probably do it.
Right.
The
but we're talking about going to another hardware solution, being able to, like, Wirecast has NDI output, where you can send an NDI signal to any NDI compatible device, which is a program out feed. Well, I want to be able to send that to the NeuralNet system, which John Mahoney supports. So that's why I just wanted to clarify that. That's why we're saying that. So, but I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, and your NeuralNet system, it is a software-based, but you have it on a separate hardware box.
Right.
So,
and that's the reason we did that. I'm sure, Jeff, that's the reason why you have the separate box, was because of an audio mixer.
It is, and you're using industry gear. Yeah, I mean, there's two trains of thought with this, and I mean, it's a wonderful world to live in when you can do app-based, NDI-based, more consumer-level things will work in a good way. But when you've got a lot of industry equipment, you can't mix it kind of the way you'd like to sometimes, but got to pick one or the other sometimes. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, let me see. Joe messaged me on Discord. I want to see. Oh, Joe said his YouTube wasn't working last night either, but Twitch was fine. Okay, so it wasn't just me. I wasn't going crazy. So, guys, today, real quick, for those that are tuning in, so you can kind of know what we're going to talk about today, interview techniques and tips. Marty put together a nice one page, and we're going to kind of go through some of these things, because I think a lot of people, let me put it this way. I've seen a lot of interviews where it looks like the host just looks like a deer in headlights and has no idea how the interview should go and how to direct it. And the guest kind of feels like, I don't know where to go with this. There's just no flow. I guess that would be fair enough to say, right?
Yep.
So
that's a good description of it.
We kind of want to share those tips with you today and talk about that, because it's very important, whether you're doing professional high-end video like this or you're doing just an ad hoc interview with a cell phone because you're at a conference that you met a celebrity and you want to do an interview. These tips should help you. So that's what we're talking about today. All right, so we've got a bunch of people on LinkedIn. We got a bunch of people on Facebook. So we're going to go dark, and we're going to get this show on the road here, the last show of this week, and then we'll be back next Thursday. Same bat time, same bat channel. So give us a second, and we're going to go dark and get this show rolling. I was going to say it's Thursday, but it's not Thursday. It's actually Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, and that's why we're doing this show, the On Social Show, the show that talks about everything that has to do with live professional video on social media. We are live here on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all your major social channels, and I have the whole team together this week. The day before Thanksgiving, we've got Mr. Marty McPadden from PodJam.tv. Welcome back.
Hello, Stephen. It must be the holiday week. We're all here. So
yes, we're all here, and we also got Elvis himself. The Emmy, the future Emmy Award winner in not only one category, two categories, but Jeff, 3 categories.
It's actually 4, believe it or not.
It's 4 categories.
It is 4 categories.
He's gonna sweep this.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think I finally know now why when people are nominated, they say, "Oh, it's just great to be nominated." But the truth is, it really is great to be nominated because it's an industry recognition by people who are not your buddies and your pals, and will tell you nice things because they like you. They do. You know what? Your work actually, it hit a milestone. And the way I look at it is the Mid South Emmys, the PSA that I did in North Carolina for the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs is what was nominated. And the way I look at it is it's in Nashville, February 15th. I'm going to take my wife and some friends down a day or two before. We'll have a great Valentine's weekend and have a blast. And if there's a recognition in the form of actually winning, that's all the better. But it's really kind of an amazing moment. It's not something that happens all the time.
So then afterwards we can sit there and I might not need to borrow the clip from Kim Commando where it says, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy," and play that when you come back and you're showing us the Emmys that you receive, right?
Listen, I'll be honest with you. It's the one. It is honestly with me. It is the one award my entire life, 35 years doing this, that I thought if one day maybe I would ever do anything that would be really valuable, maybe it would be nice to be recognized. So for me, it's an incredibly big deal. But
it is a big deal.
To be honest with you, I think the thing that if I was to pick one that I could win, it would be the writing, which I was really surprised because that's not video. It's a part of me that I've been trying to develop over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's meaningful in so many ways. But the truth is, every one of us are learning every day with the wealth of information that we've got with things like what we're doing and YouTube and things like that. And so there are a number of great things you can learn, and I think anybody's capable of making great content at this point if you pay attention, learn from people ahead of you, and learn off of their mistakes and not your own, and you'll do great things.
Well, we're looking forward to it. We wish you best of luck with that. So we have an Emmy award-winning host nominated. I'm speaking it. Award-winning. I'm going to speak it. And
we're going to go there.
Yeah. So I think it's well deserved, and so we congratulate you, sir. And we look forward to it.
I appreciate that an awful lot. I'm 54, and it's an amazing thing that that it's at this point in my life, and I think it's really it means a lot in so many different ways. But thanks so much for the kudos.
Oh, absolutely. So, guys, one of the big things that we wanted to talk to you about is interview techniques, and some of you guys out there might be saying, "Well, I know how to interview people." I think you should still listen to this anyways because I have done a lot of interviews in my time. And not as many as these two guys, but ones that were probably take the cake, ones that I got 1 or 2 word responses in an interview, and you sit there and go, now, how do I drudge on for an hour when the person I'm talking to is only giving me 1 or 2 word answers, and I've got 10 questions prepared for this person, and we're going to go through these in the first 3 minutes. So Marty has put together a one sheet here. So, Marty, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you on the preparation side of things. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yes, we all know the old saying. Hopefully, we all know the old saying: "Proper preparation prevents poor performance," and that couldn't be more true than with doing interviews, especially live interviews, live streaming interviews. On social media. And preparation is really the key. That's where it all starts. That's your foundation. Really, the objective of your preparation, and forgive me, I'm looking down at my notes here, so I want to make sure I get this right, is the objective to get acquainted in advance and make your guest feel comfortable being your guest. The more at ease your guest is, the better and more authentic the interview will be. And I wrote that out, and I was doing my notes, and that really is the crux of the issue here. is many times when you're even if you're a host and you do it many times, you may be comfortable over time and you may be getting better through practice and through repetition, but chances are many times you might have someone on that maybe their first time, setting up their webcam and getting up on live video. And for a lot of people, it's scary enough to be live, even if it's not going to many people. If you're just starting out, it doesn't really matter. It can be intimidating. So some of the things I always say is, you want to prepare in advance for that. You don't want to be the first thing and I've seen this where people fire up the computers, go on, and the first time they talk to the guest is when they're literally counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're live on Facebook. Hello, and you are, Michael Jones or whatever. And there's no chemistry, there's no preparation, no nothing. Like you said, Stephen, you might have 3 questions, you burn through them in 3 minutes, you might be scheduled for 30 minutes, and where do you go from there? It's like a lot of, I don't know where to go. So preparation's key. Some of the things you wanna do is you wanna meet with your guest ahead of time. Very, very important. So say if you have, you know, like at least a week before, start setting up obviously you've had that conversation before, maybe on the phone or through email. You might set up, I want to interview you on, I have this live show. I want to interview you. But then you want to also schedule some type of video conference that you can meet with them. And hopefully, and I would say this little tip, if you're self producing your show, what I would encourage you to do is meet with them with your equipment, with your setup already on. That's what in fact, when I do live shows for clients, I'll always meet with them using the equipment I'm using and come on camera and then kind of get them used to what the setup is. Like I play the host, you're the guest, here's what it looks like. I'm sending them back the net return, the 2 box or whatever shots I'm sending them back. So they get a feel for, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. This is what it's going to look like. The next thing I do is, okay, especially if they're new, are you looking into the camera? What's your setup like? Let's go through your setup. What's your internet? All the technical stuff that you normally go through, wired internet. We've talked about this on other shows. Get them comfortable. But the main issue, especially during interviews, is getting them comfortable with you and trying to develop that quick chemistry to know that, okay, here's what we're going to talk about. Go have your script ready to go, your questions. What's the objective of the interview? Here are some of the questions I'm going to ask you. Let them have the questions in advance and then kind of maybe even do a mock interview when you're discussing it. What do you want to cover? Maybe do some notes. And I'll tell you, I have podcasting clients I work for. I do editing and production, and for a lot of them, we actually read out the questions in advance. We do the pre-interview. They have the question. They have an opportunity to kind of craft their answers ahead of time, not to read their answers on air, but have kind of an outline as far as what they want to cover. And also, what that does is not only makes the guest comfortable, but it also makes the host comfortable that they are going to produce a show that is going to fulfill their objective and whatever they're trying to communicate with their audience. So that's another key. Um, Coaching your guest on appearance, getting them used to being on camera. They might not be used to being on camera, but looking like we all look in the camera, getting them set up with that. It's going to be, and that takes some practice, as we all have gone through all the shows. Getting them look in the camera and not looking at their monitor, and practicing with that. Say, this is what I want you to do, and being aware that that's what we're going to want you to do, and also explaining to them why you're doing it. You're presenting to the audience, so this is why we're doing this. Review the flow of the show. Like I said, you want to have a script, you want to have a flow. If it's an interview, have your list of questions. Now, what I would also recommend is have a list of questions, more questions than you think you're going to need. And the reason for that is, and also list your questions in orders of importance. So you want to put the questions that you really want to get to up front, and then put the other questions, if you get to them, have some questions at the end. And that way, especially if it's a live show, you don't know how that's going to go. And so during the pre-interview, you'll get a sense of what it's going to be, but during the live show, it could be a little bit different. So be prepared to be able to edit on the fly, and having that conference beforehand, you get a sense of what the guest is going to say, what they're going to cover, and you'll know kind of what it's going to be like. Um, let's see, conduct a pre-interview to answer questions. So yeah, so I can't overemphasize how important that is. And Jeff, I'm not sure if you've run into this too, but this is something that I go through with every client I do, or I work with, for live interviews, whether audio or video. and it just makes for a much better show. It's definitely worth the effort, and they're much more at ease. And then when they come on, when the show date is, you already have a familiarity. Oh yeah, hey Joe, how you doing? And they're already at ease when you're making that contact. When you're about to go live, so it makes for a much better show.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
it does, and it's something that I think, you have to know the story before you can tell the story. And, I'm gonna refresh here after, this comment here because obviously the internet is always interesting. But the biggest takeaway on there is that it's a three-way conversation, right? I mean, you have to know the dynamics of what your audience is looking for them to be entertained and informed and educated. And then you can build that bridge between your guest and that audience. And I think that's really key.
Oh, absolutely. I think too, Marty, when we're doing this kind of stuff, when we sit down and we figure out, I learned it very early that you don't you don't go in blindfolded, because if you do go in blindfolded, bad things happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Stephen, I think we've seen examples of it, and usually it's from beginners, but it also can be from experienced people.
Yep.
And granted, now I'm not saying that this is a one size fits all. I mean, there might be situations where it might be a breaking news situation, or it might be something that you come on. It might be a show that's very conversational, that doesn't really have a script. Maybe just has a one line topic, and you just have at it, and there's really no script. So it's not a one size fits all. But we're talking about for those more structured interviews that you want to have a beginning, middle, and end, and especially if you're trying to hit a time, like say if you're trying to hit 30 minutes, or you have a specific time block you want to hit, you want to kind of pre-produce it.
Hmm.
And again, that preparation is so key because at least you have an idea. Like we had the notes for this show already made up. So we know, and we may not get to every single point here, but I was telling Stevens, like Stevens kind of acting as the producer here, keeping us all on track. If we go too long, then he's gonna yank us in and we're gonna go to the next section because we want to hit our 30 minutes. But yeah, preparation is key there. So before we came on this show, we all knew, okay, this is the outline, this is what we're going to talk about.
Mm.
We're all comfortable with each other, and that's why it comes off the way it does. It's
Yep.
not like we're meeting for the first time. So
Well, and there's another element to this, and Jeff, we're going to hand it off to you for this one, and that's rehearsal.
Yeah, there is. Rehearsal is something that is that there's a nuance in connecting with your guest before you go live, because if you ask all the questions that you're going to ask during the live show, you're literally going to lose that essence of spontaneity and conversation, and you're going to find yourself struggling to, like, what am I going to say here? Or I've already heard it, and you even begin to kind of think I've heard it before, so you don't really go down any of the particular angles that you might be able to hear in a in a live conversation. So it's a little bit like CSI live stream. You basically, as Marty said brilliantly, connect like you're doing the show with all the lights and the mics, and it's the same vibe and feel, so that everybody knows that cadence. And then ask questions that will really elicit non yes or no responses, questions that will bring somebody out of their shell. And sometimes in rehearsal, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you're doing fine, but I want to see more life, because we all know that I think that the studio is probably the biggest impact on being open. It kind of closes the spirit. There's a camera there. You don't really get any feedback. There's bright lights. It's very quiet, and everybody's watching, and you end up kind of crawling into a little bit of a shell. But if you can help that guest understand, hey, it's okay if you want to be more animated. I've even told people, pick it up even by double, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, trust me on this, because right now you're kind of like very, meek and everything. Let the world see who you really are. Come out and tell that story in a way that we can all really get into it. And sometimes that helps, I think, really kind of make that live interview that much better. But rehearsal is absolutely key. Getting in there, finding out where the nuggets are that you can bring up during the live conversation, that may even surprise your guest.
That was something I know, you and Marty, you probably remember this more so than Jeff, but I did a throwing show with a family member. She was number one in the nation,
Hmm.
and she had she had never spoken in front of anybody. She had never done, that type of thing. But she wanted to do a live show, and she had all these connections to coaches, and it was really interesting for the track and field
Hmm.
industry, if you will, or the schools. So these coaches would come on, all these college coaches and ones. What we did was with her, because she had a lot of quirks when she'd talk, she would say, a lot. Like, I had her count after we did the first one. I said, now I want you to count in the first 3 minutes how many times you said, and she was up to like 40 and she stopped counting. It was that bad. But we rehearsed as if we were live, like Marty said, and we prepared like we were live. We did a show. We went an hour long because that's how long it was. And we did 9 episodes till she felt like she was confident. And none of those episodes ever aired. It was just for her to record it, take it home with her, study it, rewatch it again, pick out some of the nuances in it that, like she was like, "Ooh, I can't believe I said that," or why did I hang on that cliff word? She would just, be able to kind of see what I was telling her, and that I do that now for any podcasts, if you will, that people want me to produce for them because Jeff, it just makes sense, right?
It's just a brilliant tip, Steve. I mean, you think that it's like everybody's looking for a formula, right? Okay, so the checklist that Marty put together is great. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get there. But you said something really amazing, which is sometimes with a guest, you do more than once. You may have to do it 9 times, like you're talking about, and it seems like counterintuitive. I'd find a different guest, but the reality is that story that may be incredibly potent to your viewers maybe lies within that World War II veteran or somebody
Mhm,
who's never been in front of a camera.
mhm,
And so I think that's actually really, really well said. And it's valuable because when somebody that you're talking to ahead of time knows that you've got their best interest in mind and you're willing to actually say to them, hey, the content's great, but maybe we need to work a little bit here and there on how you're presenting. um, they know that they can trust you at that point. I think it even opens the door for better conversations when you do the real live show.
yeah, Marty, when you agree, like you don't want it to be forced fed. I guess that would be the best way to put it. I've done interviews where it feels like you're pulling teeth, and I'm not even a dentist.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that really comes with the preparation. What you were describing there, Stephen, as far as doing these test shows and these rehearsal shows over and over again until you got a cadence. I mean, you're literally describing how it's done at the highest levels in network and all that. I mean, especially when you're doing either a new setup, new set, new graphics, new anything, new crew, on air crew, there's always a period of extensive rehearsals. I mean, I remember my days at ESPN. Anytime that we did something new, there's always an extended period, weeks of rehearsal, and make sure everything's dialed in. And then once you had that crew and everything, and then when you do the daily news show like a Sports Center, normally that's the same crew normally during the 11 o'clock during these shows, and so you're not doing rehearsals. But when you're setting up something new, that's what people don't see, and that's
Hmm.
why it comes off the way it does, and these are professionals. These are people that can sit down in front of a teleprompter and just read, but they don't do it that way because they wanna make sure everything's dialed in and that there's nothing left to chance, and because there's plenty of things that happen during live that you can't control, so the idea is to mitigate things you can't control, and again, at the highest levels it's done, so why not you, especially if you're beginning, you're in good company, I mean,
Hmm.
and it's funny because the preparation part is probably the least favorite of most people. It's not terribly exciting. It's kind of boring because it's not on, but it
Yeah.
produces good results. And if you just, it's almost like saving money. If you just save money to a goal, you'll have that money, but you have to kind of like, be patient with it, and put the work in, and it pays dividends in the end for sure. So.
Well, and
Yeah,
one
and
of
I think it's one of those things too that if because you said, I think in a way that really resonates with a lot of people, Marty. You look for the bright lights and the shiny conversation to be the savior. I'll slide in and I'll just kind of wing it, and it'll hopefully work out. But I think a lot of times the kind of the apprehension to doing the preparation really lies in you're not sure of the story yourself, or you're not sure of something yourself, and then rather than just admitting that and facing it and being like, hey, 3 days from now I don't know what I'm really going to talk about. You just think, well, okay, we're going to kind of make it work. And you can, but the thing is, your content then becomes very marginal, and it begins being like all the other digital noise that's out there, and the value goes way down. So there's something to be said for kind of facing that up front, and then admitting where the problem is, or at least seeing where the problem is, and then you can make adjustments and hopefully make a much better show.
Absolutely. And we want to take this opportunity right now to, before we get into the last point, to thank the folks over at Telestream. I mean, Telestream's the reason we're able to create this show for you guys and really put it out there. And what they've done is they've given you a discount code. You want to stream like the pros, you want to get out there and do awesome things, then you can get Wirecast. If you use the promo code OnSocial10 from now until December 19th at midnight, that's your time frame. Then and only then can you get this discount. 10% off using the offer code OnSocial10 for Wirecast Studio or Wirecast Pro. You guys have been hearing us talk about, getting the show together and making it look as professional as possible and communicating with guests. It's got tons of features on it that you can use. In fact, I use it predominantly for my arcade show that I do on my own. We all use it here. These guys are joining via Wirecast through other means, but they're essentially setting up their shots, being able to switch on the fly with that. So we encourage you to check it out. OnSocial10 is the promo code. Use it before it is gone. So one of the
Steve,
go ahead.
Steve, I just want to say real quick. I think it's important to just let the folks know who may be new that each of us are actually in our home studio. That these are not facilities. Now obviously Chromie can make things look really nice. You're actually on a physical set, but it's amazing what you can do with the right products. And so obviously we're big fans and very thankful to Telestream. And I can think. I was thinking we should probably have had a turkey leg with their logo on it or something here today. But
no, they've been very gracious to us in allowing us to do the show and giving us the creative freedom to talk about the stuff that we're talking about to help better people in broadcasting and getting their message out on social media. And I guess, Marty, the last point that you had on this, well, there's sub points, but I mean, the last major point was Showtime. And that's kind of where I come in. Jeff and Marty have been very instrumental in getting, notes together a lot of times, providing, great commentary. But when it comes time to brass tacks, I have a regiment that I go through, and even though these guys are veterans, they'll tell you, I try to get them on a half hour before the show starts. I get them on to make sure that their cameras, their audio is working, because listen, we're all doing other productions during the week. We don't just set it, forget it, and walk away from it until the next week. Jeff's got work to do. That's why he's, an Emmy award winner coming up, and Marty does stuff with his clients, but I also do my own personal stuff outside of this. So we have to make sure everything's in there, and I am very I want to say anal retentive about this, because if I notice that a guest is not tech savvy, like I did a show about a week ago with a gentleman who's not tech savvy, we got on an hour and 15 minutes before the show because he was wanting to go and he didn't want to be like, oh man, we're down to the wire and I can't get this going. Here he had all kinds of problems with his browser. We ended up getting him in through his iPad. There's just a lot of things, and you as the host, you have to be vigilant in knowing if your guest that you're interviewing is tech savvy, depending on the technology that you're using to interview them. If you're there in person and you're doing one of these shots with the cell phone and kind of, just kind of one-handing it, and I know, Jeff, I've seen you do that at the summit that you were just at, the Stream Geek. Yeah, you and John Mahoney, you were kind of doing one of those offshoot interview styles. That's one thing. You don't have to really do any kind of technical prep, if you will. But when you kind of get into this, you have to make sure that the guest knows kind of like, and I'll run down with these guys. I'll say, listen, we're going to run the intro. If we have commercial breaks, I'll say about 12 minutes in, I am going to cut you off because we're going to have to run a commercial. And then after that, we'll come in. But Marty or Jeff, I want you to lead in with the story. So we're going to come out of it. I'm going to say a few words, and then I'm going to toss it to you. So be ready. I want you to lead in with this story. And these guys know, like, even during this show, we segmented before the show, even before we got on air. We said, okay, Jeff, you're going to do this one. Marty, you're going to do this one. I'm going to do this one. That way, there's more order in this, and there's more of a flow, as opposed to everybody tripping and stumbling over everybody and not understanding the direction that we're going. So it's very important to make sure you give yourself and allot yourself enough time, to go live, and make sure that you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And Marty, we can't stress enough. I mean, you've said this throughout the notes. Try to make your guests as comfortable as possible. I mean, that's the big takeaway here. You want to make them feel like They're just having a conversation with you, because that's essentially what it is. You don't want it
Yeah.
to feel forced or I can't pull answers out of them and feed off of them. You might be able to ask questions based off of their responses that weren't even planned, and it's going to be a natural progression, a natural flow of things, right? So
Right.
that's key. Remember, the script is there as a guide. It is not for you, and I think, Jeff, you hit on this a little ago. It is not for you to sit there and read verbatim, word for word, because then you sound what? Robotic.
Right. Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, yeah, again, like I said at the top of the show, you have to know the story of the person you're talking to before you can tell their story. And that's where a little bit of research really comes into play. You don't want to be 24 minutes into a show that's an hour and you're cutting to them if you're the one directing, and then you're getting on Google and trying to find out what their birthday was or where they went to college or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other thing we haven't really said, now, but obviously it's so simple, it's almost overlooked all the time. You need to listen when you're doing a show to the people you're talking to. We don't have this problem in daily life. If you're standing in line at the DMV, somebody's saying something really interesting that you kind of like, yeah, I'm into that as well. Conversation flows. But we kind of think when we get in front of all this, I think a lot of times we let the moment control us rather than we're the one in control. And to your point about, directing Marty and I, that's what clear communication and leadership is as a producer. What you're doing there is you're ensuring that the show is going to have a very consistent look by making sure that certain things are always in play, because there are variables that happen all the time. A couple minutes before we went on, my earpiece actually, the wire actually broke in two, and that's never happened before. But you get ready for it. You have a backup plan. You know how to handle these things. Same thing is true with interviews.
Yep. And one last thing on that, Mark. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you hit that last bit about the graphics and the visual?
Yeah, I'll hit that one more last point. Is one of the things you could do is, along with all the stuff we're talking about, can't overemphasize getting ahead. Connecting at least 30 minutes before, and Stephen, in your case, an hour before to get everything set up. That way, you're not sweating to death, and you have plenty of time to work things out. Be flexible with your script. Can't overemphasize that. Don't be married to your script. Have your stuff up front, and don't be afraid to cut along the way. Nobody knows that you didn't include it. You can always include it in another show. So be flexible there. And Jeff hit the nail on the head as far as listening to your guest and reacting to that, because the conversation can take a really interesting turn that way. That's where the practice comes in, because you got to listen and switch your show at the same time. Practice ahead of time doing that. That's way harder than it looks. Stephen makes it look easy. It's way harder. The last point is, you can add to it, and as far as the guest comfort and your comfort, you can make your show a lot more visually interesting, and also add value by adding visuals and graphics. So say if you're discussing a point and you maybe have a video or audio to back up that point, add that in. All this switching software allow you to do that. And also it gives visual interest and visual variety to your show. And maybe the guest is not on the screen all the time. You can cut to one of those shows and say, like I've done this in previous shows here, where I've shown the Wirecast gear set up on location and I talk over it. We're not on the screen. It gives the viewer another thing to look at, gives your guest an opportunity to be off camera, and just makes it more interesting. Graphics can help, if you have words that, or like something that you want to put up on the screen that you want to emphasize. Say if you're covering some points, we could have done it here certainly, and you want to put up a graphic, prepare that in advance and put it up there. It just makes it more visually interesting and gives your guest a break and makes them feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, everything kind of works for a reason. I mean, even the cadence of switching, like we've talked about in previous episodes, my cadence when I'm switching from a single shot to going to a 3-shot, and then maybe going to a different person, what it's doing is trying to keep your interest, just like if you were watching TV. They don't stay on one static shot for too long, because otherwise you lose interest. It just becomes like a monologue, as if you're sitting there watching somebody dictate to you. So I think all in all, these are tips that you guys can take. Some you might already have known. Some you may have heard here for the first time. And I think, guys, we kind of well-rounded this out. And we kind of put an exclamation point on it. So it's that time. We have to wrap up.
Is it time for pumpkin pie yet?
No, unfortunately, it's not time for that. But it's not going to be long. It's a good 24 hours before that comes. So
I
no.
have a NASA clock. It's like T-26.
Well, depending on what time zone you're in too. If you're on the West Coast, you got longer to wait. So, but anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we have the future Emmy Award winner, Jeffrey Fitzgerald from Jeff and HighDef.tv. Thank you so
You're
much for
overdoing
joining
it,
us.
my friend, but thank you.
Absolutely. You earned it. And we also got Mr. Marty McPadden from PodJam.tv.
I can say I knew Jeff when, you know.
Hey, we'll just hopefully with all his interviews and everything like that, he's still going to have time for us here. I mean, that's going to be the big thing.
Oh my goodness.
So, guys, we want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving to all you and your family from us here at On Social and Telestream. We want to thank you for all of your tuning in and contributing to the show, and we want to keep it going as we roll forward the rest of the year and into the new year with On Social. We thank you guys so much for your support, and I guess we're going to leave it there. I'm going to end it with all of us on the screen here and just say, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and it's kind of out of the norm that I'll do that, but we'll see you all next time here for On Social.